I mean, how many people in the world would die to be sitting where I'm sitting right now? This is fantastic. And I mean, it is fantastic in every dimension. I mean, I've known these two young guys across here for quite some time, are harming more chess, but of course, I understand what's been put together by these two young men to make sure that chess achieve all that you can. Well, listen, just to warm up on these things, Jess, I'd like to ask some pre-fight questions. Looking back into your not very long life, first feelings of competition and challenge.
Well, see, I started doing athletics when I was 9, 10 years old, and that was my first real taste of competition, really. It was fun, and I really enjoyed it, and as I got more involved and more into it, I was going to be more on attitude and saw the more, we competitive side of it on everything.
What was the first time you really felt that winning was good?
Probably, I don't know, probably the English school. That's probably one of the biggest moments. When you're a young child involved in athletics and you qualify for English schools, it is literally like your Olympics. It's the biggest competition ever, and winning there was one of my greatest moments in the young athlete.
And I should think so because most people in the group don't realize this, but they fall in school. This is one of the top competitions of the world for standard. And it is, you like the parades and everything. You must have. Did you think at that point as you marched them down? The one day, I like them look green.
I think at that stage, that was just the biggest thing to me. I just wanted to qualify for the English schools and do well there, get a medal. But it was very similar to what you then experienced in the senior athlete. Like you say, you do the parade, and it kind of mimics what you feel when you're at an Olympics and the major championships. Mm-hmm. So it's a great competition to kind of ease you into the world of athletics and what you're going to expect in the future.
It was pretty much the first time they realised that losing wasn't all that good.
When I was a junior athlete and still learning near that, and I had a great first day. I'd always be either in the first or second position coming into the second day, and then the second day my 3 events were quite weak and dropped down positions, and I think at the World Juniors I was leading or in second place the first day, and then I dropped down to 8th place and finished 8th. That was quite disappointing and hard to do at the time, but something that I'd like to improved on.
Okay, just a couple of quick ones. The influences in your life. First person that you really said something to that made any sense for a player?
Well, obviously Tony's coached me since I was 13, so he's had a little influence on me. I might have think with this.
This has been.
I think when I was younger it was all about just enjoying it. I was always told I enjoy what I do and not let it become a burden or something that I'm worried too much about, and I think that's really important when you're a young athlete.
I think to me, quite a few people, if we get motivated right there to take like sometimes a movie, sometimes I like the poetry, the Bernard Cole or something. Any movies or things that jump into your mind as things that can stop?
Movies. Well, my favourite movie is Dirty Dancing. No, I suppose more than anything, there's some great movies out there that are inspirational and they do motivate you, but the people around me motivate me, my family, and our coaches there, and the support that I have in Sheffield, and that's what's kind of inspired me, kept me going.
Okay, there's a moment in your life when the 3 questions that suddenly hit you. What do you want? How much does it cost? We're talking about economics here. And are you willing to pay the price? Where did that happen?
Everything for me was just a gradual process. So it was never kind of things just happened year upon year. And I always wanted to be, a great athlete. And in my mind, I just always said to myself, I want people to know my name and know me for performing brilliantly on the track. And that's deep down what I always wanted to achieve. And I knew that with the setup that I got in Sheffield and the support that I had there, that I was going to be able to achieve something great. But you never know what's going to happen at sport. It's just up and down, and you just have to keep working at it and believing that you can achieve something.
I think combined events, this recall being involved at some point, But the combined events are magic, and they're like life, because you have to have checks and balances. Not everything goes right, not everything goes bad. It's all hard work, I understand that. But do you intuitively, or do you have to work at the moments when it's not quite all right?
Yeah, I think you learn, for me personally, I've learned through experience, so different championships. Yeah, things do go right. In Berlin, I had a great performance there, and I was leading from start to finish, so that was a great experience for me. But I've had championships where things have gone wrong. In debut, my javelin was obviously very disappointed, and you have to be able to deal with that and move on from it. So it's been through experiences, through how I've kind of worked in training with the child, and just lots of different aspects really. But it just help all those experiences that you have along life.
Is there any kind of technique in all of this? Because that coach did another at young to Cassie at one point. He would sit in the cup, if he had a problem, he'd sit himself against the fence and he'd talk to himself. Or something along those lines of why he didn't like losing. And then he would get a... Is there any other device, for the CQB could tell this?
But I obviously, when the pressure's on and things aren't quite going right in competition, I do say certain things to myself to try and motivate myself. But I don't try and fixate too much on failing and, oh no, I don't want to knock this bar off, I don't want to do that. So I try and stay as positive as possible and just believe myself. But yeah, definitely just visualising and thinking positively makes a big difference.
Well, before I just broaden the discussion out here, I mean, you will have heard this a zillion times over these last few days. When you become a Olympic champion, it's a life change. All of you must have said that here. Very quickly, what things don't you want to change?
Well, a lot of things really. My setup back home with Deb and everyone that I work with, it works perfectly, and I really want to keep that the same. They're really consistent. Obviously it's a great position to be in, and hopefully there'll be silver for next item in the future. But I do want to keep evolving the way I am and keep my setup the same.
But life's about change. What things do you want to change?
I don't really like change too much, so but I'm not quite sure. I don't know. I'm just going to take every day at a time. I was just going to enjoy it and make sure that I don't get too carried away. I make this opportunity.
Well, something that hasn't changed for quite a long period of your life was the young man that's sitting right beside you here. Now, just to very quickly, and you can tell people for you here. Is he your mate? Is he your dad? Is he your uncle? What is he? And how do you describe the relationship?
He's my best mate. Obviously, we have worked together for a long time, and our relationship's changed over the years. And maybe a 13-year-old child where I didn't know anything about it at the time. He's obviously taught me everything from scratch. So yeah, it's been a long journey for both of us, and our relationship's changed quite a bit over the years.
So Toni, if you were sort of picked as a pair in Celebrity Cup dancing, who do the lead it?
And I was about you. Or that's
Let's answer that question. When it comes to coaching, of course, the one thing we always hammer into, as you well know, is if you prioritize the strengths and you only emphasize the weaknesses, they interfere with the strengths, or in a team situation, is to interfere with other people's strengths. There's a pretty clear strength here. It's such a profound one, the 100-meter science. Is that the number one priority out of the 7?
Well, I'm not going to approach it in that way. I would say that really for galaxies training the period of time is trying to have something trying to have something that's sort of fairly level. You try to push everything at the same time, but you try to overwhelm the individual with control, because the key element for it all is being injury-free. If you be injury-free, they need to go near the top of gear, and that fundamentally is what wears the Texas. There's a good career to develop, and so forwards. And the whole organism works much more efficiently. And how it does, I like those to Minjali's team and improve and falls out the track.
So that leads to a key question, because one of the most wonderful things, I mean, I could have cried when I saw the whole thing with the 2 days, because I have good memories of the fact of a young lady having a serious problem with a jumping foot and things having to turn around. And very few people in this world, you have said that they would have ultimately for what happened at these 2 days. Can you talk us through that and the process of breaking one foot the other?
I think breaking, having 3 stress fractures and doing it's friction. Right. Having 3 stress fractures in the right foot was probably more of an opportunity than an actually toddler. Having looked at her in Osaka, we're having problems to why an alters around her because the differences in how you take off. And the fact that probably when they're running at break speeds, your brain doesn't quite kick in fast enough and they'll go together for us as cost of it. So the long jump was never really producing at the rate you wanted. The dilemma then, or the obvious thing is, well, why don't we try the other foot so that the left foot plays one row, right foot plays and another. The huge dilemma there is we're his 4th championships to really feel that you're incredibly successful, that you need to step away and reanalyze. I think there are instances where golfers have taken out, have been incredibly successful, who have taken their swing apart, put it back together, and they got to be just as successful. So it's a bit of a downward that time. And the year before the Olympics is probably not the best time to sell it. And unless your recession doesn't like terms of the kind. So that was a difficult thing. But then that leads past the right foot and through stress fractures it was kind of, well, okay, if you're going to keep your career going, longevity, then here's a good time to try and change and reduce the amount of force impressions on the foot. So it was back to basics. For this room, in terms of an exclusive, I've even talked about, I had it nowhere with the process of switching back because like a life for one thing was quicker. I think when you wanted them features, it's time to take those apart. It's just, I think the problem and the conundrum with the coach is that you're always looking to tinker. You're like some guy or late for that until he's got things in cry, you're always trying to polish your trick. Tinker with it, quitting to be that until they're better. And I don't think they'd quite find out that actually Rebel 3 years ago was perfect and if you left it above it and then he hits it, this will be perfect. But you always want to sort of tinker away because you're always thinking there is that next step, there is that better performance. Only in 45 points or so down, it's a tough sell to sort of say, well, actually, cool. Personally, I think no risk of it in your body to it. Absolutely stuff. If people do that.
Just a few personal questions about getting stuck, getting into her careers. What about
yes? I can change. See this? Yeah. You got a kiss now. Well, that's all right. I tell it really.
So what about you? When did you decide that you have to leave the world of being and not that Julian to Kathy, as I remember, and decided, well, coaching is the world for me?
I don't think I'm too different from him. I think you get involved in coaching in 2 ways. One is good at they're very enthusiastic about with the press master about get involved. The other way that I got involved was the person who's coaching my group left. They were already studying for a short period of time, and when they left, it was kind of like, well, since you're the oldest, would he take over the group? And that's kind of how it was. So Paul, or I always refer to as last man standing, and so you come into it by accident, and as a consequence of it, you sort of, with the experiences you've got, you try and say, can I do this better than me? The my own personal experiences of being coached, I lose those, but they kind of add to those and be successful because I had probably the fastest ones of a marathon, and I remember I forced him to do like a shot, which is so the combination was never really going to lead to any kind of sporting success.
Well, it's there to be quite a few of us learned from who's taught us. I worked with Mike for quite a while.
Yeah, we have that.
But a good little. But just wondering, to what extent you would go work with a lot of professional football, and very often the coaches who work with you are doing exactly the same thing as their coach had given to them. Did you get a framework out of there with Mike and the other coaches, or did you create your own?
I think every coach brings something. And I think Mike is still coaching now. What Mike brings is incredible volume of hard work. There's no shortcut, there's just hard work, and we really pine it on. So that's probably something I got from Mike. There was a chap called John Henson, Selwyn Dobbins, do you remember Selwyn? Selwyn was had a much softer approach to it, a little bit the technical market. So you're putting those two things together. My previous coach, who I took over from, was very much a planner, quite intricate planner. So I think from those three things, what we put together, you sort of that begins with this with philosophy, but from those experiences, you develop an idea of how you want to take things forwards. And certainly the idea of being as balanced as possible and injury-free came from that, because my experiences with coaches was that, we worked incredibly hard. I think we were somewhat too hard, and it wasn't real sort of steady year-on-year progress where they just locking the body in year-on-year. It was more is better, and if you could stick a bit more, it must be better still. So after a while, you can't hold it with the work. So it was trying to make just a never-ending stuff.
We had to try to come back, but let me go to the far side here. Mike, I remember a magic night in Stockholm, far mid-evening, in the javelin whacked out there, and it was a UK record. Quite breathtaking that night. But very few people who've been the best at their discipline actually turned to coaching. Let's talk to me about it.
Yeah, it was 1997. Never forget it. So yeah, lots of time ago. I kind of fell into coaching because, working with Will, we'd be away a lot. He's a lectured big coaching and the classics coaching. But he'd always go up somewhere. I started as Chester Sanderson's training part, which again, when you're an Olympic champion, was a training partner. You learn the traits of becoming an Olympic champion. So I guess that was in me from quite a young age. But you'd always help the newcomer. And the one thing that Will always did was anyone who came to the track and wanted to do something, he would give them time, which meant they ended up with a group of about 60, which if one man can coach 60 people, they'll never jump. But the good thing was everyone felt special. And so even though I wasn't a coach at the time, I started to coach people in the event I knew very well. And I guess when I retired in 2004, all the way up to 2004, I've been helping people. And then Toni actually came to me at Don Valley Stadium. I was trying to make the Olympic Games in afterwards, and I missed it by a metre and a bit, and Toni came with it. And asked if I, just cast an eye on Jess and see what's out there. So, I never thought that this little girl would end up, doing as well as she has done, and certainly doing as well with the javelin, because she could sell a javelin for toffee. and that's not an insult, it's a fact. And so, but I tell you what, in helping Jessica over the last 8 years, I've learned more about the javelin than I learned in the previous 20 as a thrower, because certainly as a thrower, I had an unbelievable throwing off. Right, so cricket ball, 26 metres, the golf ball on our side. But technically I wasn't very good at that. I was just aggressive and I could compete. But in coaching someone who hasn't got a Danny LaRue and to throw a javelin, suddenly you almost have to look at every step, every position, every feeling, and try and convey that to someone. It's like coaching your mum how to throw a javelin. It's suddenly, it's as hard as that. It's true. And so suddenly you've got to, the things I'd take 100 things for granted would coach the one thing. John Chauvin used to help me, never wrote a schedule, never looked at any training, but he could tweak a javelin technique of somebody of the throw. Could he coach someone from nothing to something? I'm not sure he could, because that wasn't what I was really good at. And so I've learned to coach people because of how I had to think with Jess. And at the beginning, I probably wasn't the best javelin coach in the world because, I took all things for granted. Now I think I know an awful lot about the event from trying to help this young lady throw the stars. And they started at 28 metres. and we've gone up, and again, someone who doesn't like change, this girl wouldn't run forwards to turn sideways. That took 3 or 4 years, so it's the time it takes to do those sort of things.
So I suppose you've underlined it's an old Chinese proverb that to teach is to learn twice.
Absolutely.
It obliges you to get to break down. We're talking about breaking down things that are starting up. And to join the whole team together here now, obviously a year ago, there must have been a slight sense of heartbreak because the javelin didn't work.
And that our dears had not, but the guy was Ryan in Great Britain. I was chatting to Gareth about it today. I was dragged up in front of the cameras as the reason why Jess didn't win the world championship. And I think I met you the week after.
We did.
We came down to Leeds. And so, I mean, that hit me probably a little hard. I'm sure Jess dealt with it, but the minute it happened and then it finished, it was dealt with. For me, it was a lot hard. I was actually in the training camp in Ulsan and then was watching at 3 in the morning when Dago actually happened to do passing about.
So let's go through the aspects of that how it's happening, right?
Yeah.
And as I keep saying to coaches in these sessions, whatever you see in life is a consequence of something. Now, the way I've always seen someone like you, Tony, as the head coach in the combined events is you're like a conductor in an orchestra. We've got different players in front of you who combined will produce the items support the soloists. So did you take the lead at that point and say, look, let's have a look at the whole thing? Of the Jess, or was it Mick, Craig, Peyton down and from Boom?
I
think I'm a little better about his father. That was the baddest filled out of the
I think, well, yeah, I suppose I remember at the time the phone calls were quiet. Oh, Clark, it's okay. To line it, it's okay. And then, in fairness, Mick, like most people, you want to fix it. You feel that you're responsible enough, we want to fix it. And Mick really drove it because he was like, I think we were back 20 minutes, we're off the plane still with bags, and was there with a sheet of paper saying, this is what's going on, guy. And he was literally very quick afterwards upset, and I went through it, this is going, that's going. And then really as a three, as you sit down, you get the actual first-hand experiences, what I see and what settings to kind of what goes in, and then really mix position. And you sort of look at it and say, right, over the year, what was right, what was wrong, we were good at this particular way, we're bad at that. It's in the wall work. First wall, so they're out 4 5 inches. So fundamentally, there wasn't a huge amount of ball, but it broke down, lost the competition started. So it was kind of what did we do, how have we done it, what should have happened, what didn't happen. It was structural analysis more than anything. And then we made a decision. Mick and Jess made a decision. This is what you do, this is how we put it in there like this. And it's important that the athletes involved at that stage, at that level, because you've got to take ownership of it. It's all one in the coach, but it's always the athlete that's also to lose. And it's not being a coach who believes it. Probably they're much different in football, because they tend to say managers. But I think that it was important to shoot a bunch of understood it, had the confidence with it, and commit, right, this is a structure and this is a great cause. My way purely at the end of the day is in that sense is to say, well, okay, we're sure about that, we're questioning this needs that is that. I don't think we agreed all the time, but eventually I haven't talked to them.
But if it gets into the health about it, it's tricky. Then when you agree on all sorts of trouble with that. You mentioned Jess in the evaluation of the assessment of that, and it just reminded me of something that I co-worked with Fried Formula 1 and Maranello, and we looked at when you go down to do a testing session and you come back in, there are banks of television screens all the way around the walls. And the top one is how the corner sees the car. The one underneath is how the car sees the corner. The one underneath that is the technology. So you can say you're looking at the javelin or suspension. But the most important person in the room at that juncture is the chief engineer will turn to the driver and say, how did you feel about that? Because if the driver doesn't feel that the whole thing fits, then they'll hook the total pattern of the race, then it doesn't work. What was your feelings when you walked off? The javelin obviously didn't feel the way you wanted.
I think with the javelin, it's not an event that I'm 100% comfortable. I have been in the past, and it's one of the events that I've had to really work at. So I think that last year was just a year where it just wasn't as consistent as it needed to be. And I think if you don't feel comfortable and 100% happy when you run up, then that can bring problems when there's stress and when you're in a competition environment. But to be honest, I didn't feel that. I was obviously disappointed, really disappointed, because at that point, me not winning a gold medal was seen as a huge failure. So I was really disappointed, but at the same time I knew that there wasn't anything majorly wrong with the javelin, and we'd done some great work over the past few years to get it to where it was, and I'd found it good previously. So I just knew that we had to go away and do a little bit more work, and it was great that we put structure straight in place to see how we're going to move forward and how we're going to work on what we're going to range. But at the same time, I didn't want to stress myself too much. I didn't want to create this big problem. Oh no, it's a javelin, because I've seen that happen with Kelly, the kind of splitting before, and it's such a big issue that everyone creates, and I didn't want that to become a huge problem. So we just went away and worked on it and fight for the bit rabbit.
Can you stick with the point of consistency, because this is the different for every coach in the room's point of view. One of the old wrong in this was post up before we're changed too. What are the conditions that lead to that before us? Let's train to do this. But in the form and GDR system, and okay, forget all the negatives, but somebody said today they were good in the coaching. They put the performance at the top, and the next level was, what is the performance consistency you need to get that on the day? And so the next question after that was, what's one of the conditions that leads to that consistency? Any thoughts about that?
Similar for me. I mean, athletics is not an invasion game. There's not a massive amount of change of thought. You haven't got to decide all to us to be built for a faster player that has to with that. It's kind of a repetition of a movement. There's no contact until the 18 inches, and that's probably when they do. I think the rock is really. So my feeling is that it has to be consistent when you have to move, and it has to be the right sequence. So by changing gears on your cars, you've got to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, as in like enough to 1 to 6. So that's how you move through it. Now the ratio between those movements has to be the same as all can. And that's really what they try to develop. 800 meters is different because yes, you might have to relatively time like to slow down, speed up to go rousing. But up to that, heptathlon is pretty simple with the kids just lead action at gas, swing and anything. So the repetition of the movement is something a lot. Sorry.
You just it's really simple. It's really
Prove my point.
Yeah, so there's that, and then away from that, for me, there's the physicals, which break out down into two things. There's the actual performance in vehicle, and there's javelin, throwing balls, offensive ball. You've got plyometrically, hypertrophy, your rate of force one in the trapezius. I've added the pure strength elements that you develop in the gym. So I dive off to sort of build the hand to the gym, take you down through plyometrics, mental work, you chew and engine, and then finally race it into by throwing me into it. So there's a put the three together, and hopefully that brings it quite simply to go.
So to come back to a much earlier point, because I was asking you about how to handle disappointments and so on. I had a coffee with Toni just after we came back from Dingo, and I said to him that one of the most magnificent things I have ever seen in track and field athletics was the fact that after that, to walk onto a track and you could demand that other people be new rather than give a numbers to them, and he set a lifetime best, they could have beat us. What a tough head job was that.
Yeah, it was difficult because obviously at that point I knew that I'd thrown it away really, and I said to Toni, what do I have to do, what do I have to run to get that, that position back and win? And I had to beat her by 8 seconds, I think. And I knew, deep down, that was going to be virtually impossible. But I didn't want to come away, with a disappointing last event. And I trained hard for the 800 as well, and it's one of the events I've worked on, so I knew I could run well, and I wanted to end on a slight positive. And there was no point in not running as hard as I could. I just had to give everything. There was always a chance that someone would go wrong with the race, and she might fall over or something, and something like that might happen. But I just had to run as hard as I could and just give it everything. But those hours before the 800 was, it was really difficult, though, that I couldn't really do too much to change the outcome.
There was a huge state, and I have to say, Toni, I'd written the text that you got. I actually wrote it originally at 11 o'clock in the morning for the first day, congratulating you. And I thought, better not do that. And then as it went on, and we went into the 800 meters, where we demonstrated the same spirit that we did across there. This was an absolute staff of authority. You was supreme in this discipline. And I thought that the two rows put together to Ayana and Jess. And I'd like you to applaud that. I mean, I stumped these 2 800 meters in the face of all, on the one hand, elation, on the other hand, tough. These were world-class performances. Jessica Ennis. Can we back to you, John? You're planning a year. I don't know what you're like. This is already thinking the future. Does it start off as this pieces of plan? Because all these coaches want to know about these things. Does it start off with you seeing a framework and I better emphasize this and this and this? Well, that's the kind of target I go for, and then you invite everybody else in. Or do you start picking out the pieces to begin with as a collective before you set the framework?
I think it's got to a point where it now just flows. I'm not 100% saying I'll pull it together, but to be honest, it just seems to come together. This is only about their health and sweat and breathe, bro. You kind of know where you finish the season, and you know where you want to be, make a prediction play you think you can get to. But the overriding principle is to be injury-free. So there's a volume of work that you can add from year to year that not harsh. Or there are gaps from the training you brought that you can add. So you might thought that was it. I think certainly this year Olympically, my biggest difficulty is I wrote this record plan initially at a rugby small Struber thing that was just huge. So much bomb and this. We need this because it's Olympic. We need that and stuff at this and stuff that, so on and so forth. And it's amazing what a cup of tea will do because it stops you and you then look at it and think, what on earth are you writing? It's just far too much to come back to your principles. What's the overriding principle? You can add about 3 to 5% every year. You did step on that a little bit. We've got to avoid injury. We're in a very, very big place, so I get crazy again, lots of stuff. And I did that twice a year. Once missing with glad, and moving forwards, and then halfway through the year, it's all right. The season's about to start. I started writing this monster in there, and so we thought, round to we just take the steps, after the work was done. And it is that. And Frank said that when we met us, and he said, you know what, the work's done. You've done it. If you've done 3 years, the work is done. It's already in. Just repeat, and you'll find that being built on top. It's because you'll naturally move on. This physiologically, the body's in a slightly different place, and it performs that and better through training. So you just really just keep sprinkling on top. If going forward from here onwards, but we're not having a discussion. I don't think much would change. It is a different form of the site, but there is different elements that we take into account. Aimed, rashes, life insurance, and people are the pressures we're on. But fundamentally next will just be again use light structure in the chart, and hopefully that will do it.
Okay, just like we to look at the audience now, and it seems to me that in the world of coaching, when you're working with a world-class athlete, you've got a tsunami of advice coming in from psychologists, nutritionists, biomechanists, so on. Just how big is the entourage around Jess?
Here's the right.
They definitively make the biohackers that we work with, Paul Bryce, physio, Ali Rose, soft tissue therapist, very suitor. And then we're kind of dipping in and out of sports psychology with Pete Lindsay, nutrition with Mark Ellison.
On top of that, she went and took him for 2 doctors, Simon Till and Richard Williams. There's another physio, Johnson. I do a lot of work with the psychologist. She does Christmas particularly related. That's Bridget does stuff for. I think there's other things. So people work in different ways. If they're working directly with the athlete or working home by, if they're working with me, then they're much more general. What do you think of this? How they please together? And then additionally, I always use a philosophy that, yeah, if someone's doing something to say, then you sit, listen to it, because the more I coverage the sort of, the thicker I get, the less I understand. The more is out. You can just, when I first started coaching altitudes, now I'm just dumb as hell because there's so much more out there. People I'm speaking to, Scott Brace, you do sports, what's new out there? What could map to this? Where you can take it? How can you set up things? So there's always something else there, and it's always worth it listening. It's worth an examination and say, can I apply that? Can I apply it in such a way? And I mean, Steve here, let's do that. Steve being a physiologist, he usually comes at us with a huge list of different things. And I'm like, I like that one, I like that, but this was a good reason that these I'm not so sure about, because parts of stickily and words in like that, so that'll be a difficult sell. So you kind of pick and choose and get you can and put the collage together. But not everything you're supposed to laugh about, but if here's kind to start and pull across, there's just too many choices in the sweet shop, so you just want to pick and choose the bits you want. And I suppose there's see nothing.
Within your entourage, of course, there's a lot of people who are non-technical. I mean, if I used to rely on my father, didn't matter how successful a British team or whatever it been, I could rely on him phoning up within minutes of landing back home and telling me what was rubbish, wasn't rubbish, but what I was doing. And now because I've got 2 daughters, they do exactly the same thing as they see me doing things. But you got to break mum and dad, right?
Yeah, mum was at him, and that's one of the nicest things, that they don't try and tell me what to do coaching-wise. They're there in the background, support me, and take as much pressure off me as possible. And they help with things like walking my dog when I might be tired from training and things like that, and looking after her. And some of my other family members do have little inputs. My granddad sometimes, bless him, he's like, your javelin, have you tried this? I'm like, Granddad, you don't know what I'm doing in training. And it makes me laugh. But he's obviously, everyone's just trying to help. But that's one thing with my mum and dad. They just literally, they know that I'm in great hands with the coaches that I work with and the people around me at training, and they just let me get on with it.
And every time you flash your left hand, I get dazzled in my right eye for the diamond that's on there. What about the young man in your lunch? How much in for the support, so on, they see it build?
Yeah, and again, loads of support, just in the same way, really, that he doesn't try and interfere with training, which, again, is perfect. And, we've been together for a long time, so he's kind of been on the same journey together through, being a junior athlete, coming through to where I am now. So, yeah, I think it's all new for him as well, but it's been great.
Fantastic.